All right, Rippers. It's good to see you back. Sorry if I look all hot and sweaty. It's hot and sweaty out there. And if you're out there doing the things, well, you'd look hot or sweaty too. And I hope you are. And I hope you guys are all doing okay and have a nice, cool place to take a break. Speaking of that, we got a lot of people out there that are having to deal with high temperatures, right? And they're having to deal with power outages or planned outages or shortages, brownouts, whatever you want to call them, right? But they're doing it to us. And you know what? You got to be ready for that. Now, some people are lucky enough to have a generator and things like that, or a solar generator or a gas generator, solar power, all that kind of stuff. And those are all great. But there are those of us out there who can't necessarily afford all of that, right? So we got to think of alternatives for those people as well, right? Because they're just as important as anybody else. Now, some of the things you can do when it gets cool at night, right? Say about, 11 o'clock when you go to bed, 10 o'clock, whatever it is, open up your windows. Crack a window upstairs or open a window upstairs, crack some downstairs, and allow a draft to come sucking through your house. That way the cold evening air comes in there. And then right around 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning, shut it down. Draw your shades so you're not getting sun coming through the thermal of that pane of window, right? Especially, even if you have dual pane windows, they still put off heat. So draw your shades, right? Keep your house as dark as you can to keep it cool in there. Take a room, right? And do what you can to keep it cool. Get your generator set up if you have to or whatnot. And get going that way, right? There are things we can do like that, right? There are swamp coolers, that you can get. There are, ones you can kind of make on the internet, those kind of things, if it's not a non-power thing. But what I'm going to show you is something that we used to use when we didn't have power inside of a house we were working in, but wanted to cool it off. We'd have 3 or 4, maybe 5 of these things made and put them around the house just to kind of keep the edge off so that we could work inside and it not be sweltering hot like it was outside when we were doing our inside work. And these are little air conditioners. Now, all you need is a good sharp pocket knife, a Sharpie, and a pair of scissors, possibly, right? Then you want to grab yourself a couple water bottles, right? This is 2. This one was 1, like that. And this one was the second one. And what I did is I cut the tall one in half, boom, like that. Then I cut the bottom off of it, and I cut the top off. Now you can not cut it as big open as this if you want, because that way you have some adjustment. You can make it smaller, so always start smaller. But basically, one side will have a big hole, one side will have a small hole. Okay, and then the big one, it wasn't quite big enough to do it into 2, and I didn't want to actually have that many ports, because the more ports you have in this, the less pressure there is, right? So I cut this into my center port, which will stick out a little further, and it's wider on one side and smaller on the other, right? So there's my excess. And you can get another bottle if you want that has the lids on it, a big lid like this, and then take another water bottle, cut it back here with some slits in it so that you can slide this on to reduce it to cause more pressure if you want, right? That way it blows harder. That's a trick we'll do in a future video. But until then, you cut those like that, right? And that's what the scissors are for. You can start the hole with the pocket knife or go all the way around with the pocket knife or use your scissors, right? Then you're going to take this and you're going to trace holes. You're going to trace a center hole, and then you're going to trace 2 holes at about 30 degrees, right? You don't want to go, you can go 45, but you don't want to go any further than that, but somewhere in between, right? So then what you end up with is a bucket like this, right? Has holes in it, right? And you'd say, well, who wants a bucket with holes in it? Well, keep watching, you'll see. So you can see these fit in there like that, right? So you got your bucket, you've traced it, and you've put holes in it, right? And it's easy to do this. I just did this with my pocket knife. I just stuck it in, worked it in, and then just started carefully cutting it out like that. Did just fine. These aren't that strong. You don't need to use a hole saw or anything like that unless you want to, right? So you got your bucket. Now what you got to find, now you may be able to find these at Walmart, you may be able to find them at a hardware store, sporting goods store, and even your paint stores. Look at your paint supply stores, right? These are basically to turn your 5-gallon bucket into a cooler, right? For the job site. And they're great for that. You can do that, put some beer and ice in there, and you're good for beer 30, right? But for this case, what we want to do is we want to take this cooler thing, stick a little silicone on the bottom, right? Silicone caulking, stick it into the bottom, and what you're going to do is you get it stuck. Now you want to take and put a bead of silicone You don't have to do it right now. You can do it when you're done, but you want to put a bead of silicone around this too, and then let it dry. So now it's solid in there, right? It's like a cooler. Then you're going to take, and as you can see, we're going to trace our holes where we want them to get through this foam. And then by the magic of TV, boom, I'm going to do it just like that, and I've got my holes. So now that step's done, right? Okay, now this makes up the main engine of your air conditioner, right? So then the next step, what we want to work on, is set that aside to get the lid. And the lid will be solid, of course, on top. And you want to take and find at Walmart a fan like this. Now, this is a smaller one. They may have a bigger one, but they don't have them in stock right now because I used to get bigger ones. The bigger is better. So if you can get a bigger one, that's fine, just as long as it fits on top of the blade part right here, right? So what I did is this cost like, but this one was cheaper. Like the other ones I used to get were like 15 bucks or something. This one was like 5. So that being said, this here, it has 3 speeds. It can plug in or run on batteries. That's the key. You want to get one that plugs in to the wall or has batteries. That way you can use it when you have power and when you don't. Because sometimes your air conditioner doesn't keep up, right? So if you give it a little help, well, it helps with your electric bill and it helps keep the house cooler, right? Like I know when it's high 90s and around over 100 degrees here, my house starts getting, up there to 75 degrees inside because AC can't keep up, even though it may be set at like 67, say. So that being said, find yourself one like this that's battery and plug-in, right? And then that's what I have going right here. Woo-wee, love it. And you'll take, there we go, and you want to take a piece of paper and put it over, take your thumbnail and kind of just run it around like this, right, as you hold it in place, then take and trace that circle and cut it out. And that's what you're going to use here to cut the circle out of the top of your lid, right? And you can trim it up after that. You'll see that I made it smaller. Always make it smaller because you can trim it out bigger. So this was a little smaller. I cut it out, basically poked my knife in and just trimmed around like this, and I just kept going around until it fit nice like this. Right? Now you ask, why is that big notch there? Well, because there's controls on the fan right there. So what you want to do is once you got it to fit like this, nice and tight, you want to take and find out where your control is, trace out a notch with your marker, and then cut that out. And it's easy to cut. Did it with my knife, right? And then you'll take a bead of caulking, put a little dab there, and a squirt around that ring, and squish this fan on like that, and set it aside to let it dry, right? And then once it's dry, it's permanently on this lid, and you can, that way when you go to start this thing up, you can have the lid off, push it to start it, and then snap the lid down. So we're going to set that aside because we got that done. Now, what you do with these is you got your bottles here. Now you can use pipe. Like I said, we're trying to do this on the cheap, so we don't want to spend money on pipe. So you're going to take and you're going to squish this one in here like that, right? And you want to, get them nice and straight. And you want to squish this one in like this, right? And you want to squish this one in like that with the small sides out. And then you're going to caulk around them on the inside and out so that they glue in place, and then let it dry. And as you can see on the inside, it doesn't matter if they stick in a little bit, but you don't need them to stick in a lot. So just about like that, caulk it in, get it to glue up. Now, once everything's dry and ready to use, you'll have a nice thing that you could use as a cooler, but it's got holes in it. So you can make caps from other water bottles to put on there, but you can also, what the key is to this is I take my milk jugs and I rinse them out and I fill them up with water and I put them in a special freezer to keep them frozen. I do that in case I run out of power and need to, in an emergency, switch all my stuff out into a coolers or put those ice in my freezers to keep them cold, right? That's my main use for those. But I always have ones that I can either crack open or just put them in here whole. A gallon jug will fit right in the middle. Then take the other one, another gallon jug of ice or crushed ice, and smash that gallon ice into crushed ice, put it all around the milk jug in here, right? And then take yourself some rock salt like this and sprinkle it around on the crushed ice to get that thermodynamic or whatever they call it action going. You can put that down in the comments if you know what I'm talking about. And always be sure to comment, right? Because it makes sure that this gets out to the people it needs to. And that's the people we need to keep cool so we don't have people dying from heat exhaustion, right? That's the idea. We're out here doing this to help others. So you can put that in there, put the crushed ice in, put the salt on there, get the reaction going. And then you take your lid like this, snap it on, and it'll of course have the fan glued to it like this. And you can feel, even with 3 ports, now you can just do a 2-port if you want, but this blows, you can feel the air blowing about 3 feet out, okay? You can make it blow further out by reducing the size of these or the number of them. So like I said, you can put another thing over this that adjusts that. And like I said, you can have less of them. So in the past, when I built these and tested them to see if they'd even work, I had one that blew as cold as 45 degrees, but the average is about 50 to 55 degrees. And by the end of the workday, which is about 10 to 12 hours, they would be running down to about 68 degrees, which is still a whole lot cooler than it was outside or even in that house. But it did bring the temperature of that house down, and it worked real well. And I've used these in emergencies before, even when power goes out for a long time here, and it saved us. It saved our bacon, I can tell you that. And I put them all in one room, or have each person in the house in their bedrooms have one. It makes a difference. And all you have to do is have ice on hand, right? And you should be able to go out to the stores and get that if power's out for a good long time. But this is something that'll get you over that hump. That's what the idea is. This is for an emergency, or to help you if there is power and you just don't have a good cooling source, or you don't have AC at all. You can use this in conjunction with your fans that you have around your house or should have around your house, like these cheap box fans like that, right? I love these, right? They work good. They help move the air. And if you've got a ceiling fan, that's another trick. And I'll put that in a different video, but you can get a ladder, go up to your ceiling fan, and there's a switch on it that says reverse. And instead of blowing air down, it pulls air up, right? So that pulls that cold air up. And you want to flip your fans over, especially at night when you're trying to cool the house through the windows outside. Flip it so that air goes up into the upper levels, right? And if you don't know what I mean, go check out your fan. You'll see a switch on it. It'll be there to do that. So until next time, I'll be back when I show you this thing all glued up and ready to go so that you can build one right away. My key is with this video is to get you the knowledge to get it built, and then I'll show you how well it works and we'll test it. And maybe if I can find one of my old ones with the bigger fans, we can test it against that. And then of course, like I promised, I'll do a video on how to switch a fan over, a ceiling fan in your house. But if you don't have power, that's not going to help you much. Anyway, that's just a trick if you don't have good air conditioning. So until next time, be safe, be secure, always be aware of your surroundings. And if you've got it, wear it. And if you're wearing it, get out there and practice with it. Adios. Oops.